Hello, everyone. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to get in. I am super excited today. As you can see, Pastor Brandon is not here, but he shall be joining me shortly. They have a really bad thunderstorm, and I did not want to not come on again. So let me send out the notifications to let everyone know that I'm on. And I am praying that you all had an amazing week this week. So again, I am Prophetess Latoya, and this is Bridging the Gap. And today, we didn't really have a topic that we was going to do for today. Actually, we was just going to talk about kingdom conversations. And one of the things that I have noticed in this week has not. I wouldn't say it was a trying week, but this week the Lord was really speaking to me about trusting in Him. He was speaking to me about how do you move forward in the midst of your trials, in the midst of your tribulations? How do you continue to press when it seemed like you can't catch your breath? And many times, and many people that I've talked to, they have found themselves going through a circumstance where they don't know if they're going to be able to get through it. They don't know how they're going to make it. They don't know which way to turn, which way to go. All they know is, Lord, I'm just trying to hold on. I'm just trying to make it. And this week, the Lord woke me up and He was talking about Ezekiel in the valley of the dry bones. And going through that scripture and rereading it again and just allowing the Lord to reveal things to me, I realized that many of us have found ourselves in the valley of dry bones, where it seemed like all of our situation, how are you doing, Miss Sabrina? It seemed like all of our situations and all of our circumstances, it seems dry. It seems like you're stuck, like you're in a place where, God, I just need you to show up, because right now I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I'm going to move from this spot. And today I want to let you know that God is letting you know that even in the midst of the valley of dry bones, that He is making a way of escape, even in the midst of the dry bones where it seemed like nothing is happening. When He was talking to Ezekiel, one of the things that I realized is even with Ezekiel being there, hey, Pastor Brandon.
Yeah.
So we are talking about being in the midst of the dry bones, in the valley of the dry bones, where it seemed like no matter what you're doing, you can't move forward. You feel like you're stuck and feel like everything around you is drying up. Everything around you is keeping you from moving into that next place that God is calling you to move into. And, I don't know about you, but, this week, I had to really sit still for a moment and realize, God, what do you want me to do? Because it seemed like the dryness around me was suffocating me. The dryness around me was making me feel, how do I step forward? How do I move forward in this next season? But when I was looking and studying, one of the things when the Lord gave Ezekiel the information, Ezekiel was like, Lord,
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to figure it out. you know what I'm going through. You know the pain that I'm enduring. You know the situations that have come before me. So because then I need you to give me the instructions. So Pastor Brandon, when we find ourselves in the midst of, and I don't want this to be a question and answer. I really want this to be a kingdom conversation. I want us to be able to just talk about and just be transparent about how life is lifing. What do you do when your dry bones is all around you and all you hear is a sound, but you don't realize that sound is God working it out. You just think that the sound is, I'm just walking on these dry bones and is making the noise. So how do we move in that place? What do you do when you're in that place, Pastor Brandon?
It that that
Well, Well, it's topic hitting
Um,
home.
yeah, it's difficult. It's challenging.
Mhm,
I'm gonna say that it's challenging because oftentimes we sometimes feel that we're in the valley of the dry bones and there's dry bones
mhm.
around us. Sometimes it's not necessarily the bones around us, sometimes it's the bones within us.
Okay, come on.
Um, and what I mean by that, sometimes when we are in places or in um, things that we stay in too long. And I'm not
Mhm,
saying nothing negative. I'm not saying anything like sin or anything of that nature. Sometimes you can be at a place of a job, a friendship, a
right,
ministry, or just in a city too long, and you come to a place where you just feel stagnated.
right.
And sometimes I can say personally, for the past 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, I've been in this place of like claustrophobic. It's like
Mm,
can't breathe. It's almost like a borderline panic attack. It's like you're feeling so overwhelmed. There's a lot of things going on. Your emotions are just like everywhere,
mhm,
mentally drained. Um, and in these moments like this, sometimes I find myself that it's hard to move through. It's hard to push through. And oftentimes I find myself just kind of just sitting there like, okay, I'm not understanding this. And this is me
right.
being fully transparent. As much as I may perceive as being this powerful man of God that just calls fire down from heaven and all these
Come
wonderful
on,
things.
come on.
Sometimes I'm in a place now that I'm still dealing with this claustrophobic moment where it feels as though everything is closing in. And it's not that it's a
Mhm,
lot of bad things happening,
mhm,
but internally it's like I'm getting overwhelmed. Um,
right.
and then these find myself in a place to where I have to like really check myself. Okay, God, what's going on? Or instead of me always speaking how I feel or the negativity, I
Mhm,
literally at this point I'm just sitting here like, okay, God, what's really happening? Is this me, or am I picking up a dry bone that's around me? You
right,
know,
right.
it makes you question a lot of things, and sometimes we always heard you don't ever question God, you shouldn't question things, but no, sometimes you have to ask the question why. That's not where you're
Yes.
gonna get an answer. You
Mhm.
have not because you ask not.
Awesome.
I mean, so
Yeah.
if you don't ask, how you gonna know? So to get back to your original question of how do you move through that, I think
Mhm,
it's not necessarily a certain formula. I don't think it's a certain way or a thing. This is like, okay, hey, this is what you do. I think it really predicates upon each person and where they are.
right.
Me, by me going through a lot of things in my life, I've learned how to keep moving. Even when it seems like I'm like, well, the one with the issue of blood, everybody's kind of holding me back, or
Mhm,
there's I still learn how to just plow through. But with
mhm,
some people, they may can't plow through as hard as I can, but they're still moving. Then there's some people that may be physically standing still, but spiritually they're moving, mentally they're moving. So I think in all that is really upon what you can handle and what you can do. Because
mhm.
sometimes I can say, well, hey, you should do this, but that may not be the thing that you need to do. And I'm just being
Right.
fully transparent. Y'all catch me at a very transparent, real moment. Because I'm coming to the understanding. You say you want to have a conversation. Let's have a conversation.
Let's have a conversation.
I'm coming to the understanding that a lot of times we can speak a lot of spiritual things.
Mhm,
And the truth of the matter is, we're speaking from a position sometimes to where we have overcome, to where
mhm.
some people may not go down that same path to get that same result. If I'm making sense, some
Yes.
people may not struggle with praying. Some people may not be struggling with fasting, but they may be struggling with just um, being participant in worship or at
Right.
church. Just the fact of just getting up out the bed just to take that time to pray. I hope I'm making sense when I'm saying that. So I think when you're in that valley of dry bones, you have to figure out what valley are you in. Is this a
Mhm.
valley where I have to be more, I have to persevere more in my prayer? Do I have to persevere more in just sitting still?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because sometimes we think a valley of dry bones means that everything is still. The wind is still moving. The birds are still chirping sometimes. And sometimes
Mhm.
you have to stop. Sometimes God will put you in a place of dryness. This is just me saying, of dryness, so you can actually stop and pay more attention to what He's trying to get you to pay attention to.
Right.
Because some of us, we just move all the time. We just forever just doing something, always doing something, just busy, just busy. And God got to be like, all right, let me just drop you right here in this valley so you can't do nothing. And we
Right.
think that's harm us, but sometimes it helps us to recognize, listen, you're doing all this moving, you're going to eventually be like these dry bones. You become exhausted. You can
Right.
become out of everything because you're trying to be everything to everyone, and you're not taking time out to allow yourself to be restored in the valley. Because sometimes we think valleys is always a place of desolateness, a place of dryness, but a lot of times
Mhm.
the most place that is more flourishing and more plush is actually in the valley, where you find the
Right.
lilies, you find the grasses, the greenness. So sometimes it all depends on what you perceive your valley to be. I know that was a lot.
No, it wasn't, because I think many people have to understand that it does not matter the level that you walk with God in. That there are going to be seasons where it seemed like everything that you're dealing with is becoming too much. It is
Mhm.
becoming to a point where, God, I know you as this person. I know you as, as a deliverer. I know you as a healer. But He said, but listen, I need you to know me as something else,
Yeah.
because you know me as this, but I'm so much bigger than that. So I now
Mhm.
have to put you in a situation where you be able to call out me by a different name. That you already understand that I will heal you. You already know that I will deliver you, but I need you to know that I will fight for you. I need you to know that I'm your banner. I need you to know that I see you. Because many times, like you said, we are moving so and doing so much that we don't even realize that we're just trying to be seen. Lord, can somebody just see me? Can
Yeah.
someone just see my effort? Can someone just acknowledge that of what I'm doing? And He said, many times I see you. You don't have to
Yeah.
do anything. Sometimes we want validation from people, but all we have to do is get into the presence of the Lord, and He would give us that.
Yeah.
This past weekend, Fabio and I decided, let me say it that way, decided to go on this hike.
Okay.
Well, he told me about the hike. He told me about the cross at the top of the mountain that we have to get to, and how beautiful the cross was. And he said it's hard. And of course, I'm thinking, okay, well, Fabio, if you can do it, I know I could do it. Well, when we started up this mountain, when we got halfway through, I'm like, we're going back to the car, because I'm tired. My legs hurt and everything is burning. But the Lord told me to press. And I
Mhm.
didn't understand that my life is now becoming prophecy. So
Mhm.
as I'm walking, I'm realizing that this struggle is real.
Mhm.
That the steps that I'm taking, and we found ourselves that after we went up one part of the mountain, we had to go down into a valley. And in that valley, it was now snow. So it was really hot outside, but it was still snow in that part of the valley because the sun couldn't get in. And yet
Mhm.
we had to walk across what looked to be like a glacier that we had to walk across.
Mhm.
And we were slipping and we were sliding. But I heard the Lord say, now you're in the valley,
Yeah.
but look up. Sometimes we get in the valley and we're so busy focusing on the dry bones that we don't understand that if we just look up, that God is going to give us the instructions and direction. The more I walked, I was tired. I wanted to give up. I wanted to, and then the Lord, on top of all of that, said, as you're walking, I want you to pick up rocks.
Mhm. Mm.
I'm struggling trying to get Latorsha to the base of the cross. There you want me to pick up rocks that's going to weigh me down even more. but it was so symbolic of what I needed to do, because there was a certain point that I got on the mountain that the pathway became so narrow that if we was not careful, if you slid from that path, you went straight down the side of the mountain. And so I was like, Lord, I'm about to throw all these rocks. Listen, I'll pick up some more on the other side. And what he told me, he said, listen, put it in your husband's backpack. Because many times we don't understand that when the weight get too heavy, that the Lord will always have someone there that will help you carry the weight to where you need to carry it to. And so I put the rocks in my husband's backpack, and I had to grab hold to this this chain, and the chain had so much slack in it that here I am thinking that I'm going to be able to brace myself with this chain, but the chain was giving so much slack that I could see myself looking over the side of the mountain. And I was like, Jesus, this is no joke. But he said, just keep moving.
Yeah.
It's narrow, but it's going to get you to where you need to be. You don't have a lot of wiggle room. You don't have a lot of space, but just keep moving. And I was able to get to the base of the mountain. And at the base of it, it was this beautiful cross.
Wow.
And I took the rocks, and I wish I had a marker so I could write down the names of the things that I was really laying down at the foot of the cross. But even though the journey was not easy, when I was able to get to the cross and lay it down, there was such a peace that hit me that I was like, okay, Lord. Whew. Now it took me 3.5 hours to get to the cross.
But you got there.
But it was so symbolic of even the dry bones.
Yeah.
When you trust me, because even when he talked about it, he said, the Spirit took me through the valley. So before the Lord told him what to do with the dry bones, he had time to look at all the things that was dead. He had time to look at all the things that wasn't together. He had time to look at all the things that was broken and falling apart. And in this season, that's what many of us are. Mm-hmm. We're in the place where God is showing us it looks like dry bones, but I just want you to see what you're working with. I want you to see what you have before you. And Pastor Brandon, as crazy as that sounds, sometimes we have to know what we're working with so we'll know how to move forward. Yeah. Okay, I know that I people have walked away. I know I'm dealing with anxiety. I know I feel like I'm overwhelmed. These are my dry bones. But as I'm walking around and moving, and then he said, can these dry bones live? Can your situation live? Can your marriage live? Can your children step into being saved? So as many times when we're moving, we have to be able, what is God saying in the midst of the dry bones?
Yeah. And then, and with that, if you really think about it, sometimes the dry bones is just a representation of dreams that are just dry, that you just let them lay there. They're not dead.
Right.
They're just dry. Mm-hmm. And anything dry can be rehydrated.
Right.
But the wonderful thing that was interesting about that scripture is that God didn't tell the man of God to prophesy for water to come.
Right.
He prophesied to the winds.
Mm-hmm.
If wind blows on something, it usually dries it out the more.
Right.
But the thing that I'm understanding is like, while I'm in this valley,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Come on, prophesy to yourself.
And I feel as though like I'm claustrophobic, everything's going on. When God breathes in the valley, everything that seems dry is being rehydrated because the ruach of who he is, the breath of God, is bringing life back to it. So even in the moments where I feel or you feel pressure is just immense in the valley, mm-hmm. God is doing nothing but helping you to open your eyes to see mm-hmm. this is what you need to focus on.
Right.
I'm in a place of where all your dreams, your visions, the promises I've told that you said is dead. It's not dead. They're just dry, waiting for you to speak my breath back into it so it can live. So I think in this season that a lot of times when we feel that we're in that place of dry bones, we got to realize the bones is not that the bones are dead, they're just dry.
Mhm.
And if you learn to realize what those bones represent to you, you
Right.
can speak to the breath of God to breathe on those dreams that seem dead, those visions, those promises, the things that you've been holding on to for your family, for yourself,
Right.
that you can be able to focus on. Because what I'm learning is a lot of times our valley is nothing but turbulence to our elevation.
Come on.
If plane, and I just spoke this recently, that if you're in an airplane, the higher you go in your altitude, you're gonna hit a spot of turbulence because you
Right.
have to break a certain barrier, and so the plane can go through to elevate to be able to smooth out. So a lot of
Mhm.
in our lives, we feel like God is, and a lot of times if you're on that plane and you hit a certain turbulence, you feel like that plane is about to split in half.
Right.
You don't know God, you gonna learn God real quick. Your relationship gets real serious then.
Right.
But
Right.
a lot of what I'm understanding is that as you are elevating your spiritual growth, many of us are praying, God, I want to go higher in you. I want to go deeper in you. I want to have this prayer life, this relationship with you. But in order for him to do that, sometimes he has to pull you up higher. And
Mm.
pulling you up higher, the turbulence is a lot of times people that are still trying to hold on to you, people that are trying to fight you from going up higher. So
Yeah.
for every ascension, it has to be some type of turbulence. Think about it. Before Christ could ascend back to heaven, he had to go through a turbulence called the cross.
Mhm.
And once he went through that, you got to realize that when he was on that cross, he asked God, why have thou forsaken me? Father, where are you? Because
Right.
Father couldn't look on him because of the sin, not because it wasn't his son. But what I'm saying is a lot of times when you're going through this turbulence, it seems like God is not there. And I'm speaking to myself right now. It seems like God
Mhm.
is not there. It seems like the more you pray, the more you fast, the more you try to do good, the more you try to love people, you starting to hate yourself. The more you try to do good in the ministry, trying to do this, it seems like you're doing so much good, but good ain't happening to you.
Right. Right.
It is not happening for you. And we have this mentality of sacrifice. We gotta do this for the cross. But when does it get to the point when you're sacrificing so much that you get into a place you're just moving, just limp, you're bloody, you're tore out the frame, you just don't have nothing for nobody else, and you're going through this season of turbulence, and God was like, this is where I need you to get to, because now I can pull you higher. And the higher I pull you, the more I can breathe in you, the more I can get understanding revelation. It doesn't feel good going through that turbulence. It doesn't feel good.
Mhm.
Valley. That same valley, you can look at it when Christ went to the Garden of Gethsemane. That was a valley for him. It
Mhm.
wasn't a valley per se physically, but spiritually, mentally. He asked the Father, can you please let this cup pass from me?
Right.
He cried out, can you please let this cup pass from me? And how many of us are at this point? It's like, God, I don't want to take another engagement. I don't want to help nobody else.
I want
I
another word. Right.
I'm trying to
Right.
pay for people's mental, and I feel like my mental is shot.
Right.
I'm trying to
Right.
pray for everybody else's sanity, and I feel like I'm going insane. I'm praying for
Mhm.
everybody else's emotional health, and I feel like my emotions are everywhere. And
Mm.
in this place, when like God, if you just let this cup, I don't mind doing your will, but I don't want to drink this cup. Get
Right.
this.
Right.
I don't think I can handle it. But then what I love the most about that is when Christ said, you know what? Not my will, but your will be done. And the
Mhm.
Bible says, then an angel came,
Mhm.
strengthened him. In other words, then heaven came down,
Right.
strengthened him. And so while we're in this valley and we're seeing these dry bones, these dry visions and dreams and aspirations and goals and all these things,
Mhm.
sometimes in that valley we have to say, you know what, God, whatever you say.
Right.
And then that moment, then you can be like David, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death,
Mhm.
I'm not going to fear no evil.
Right.
For I realize while I've been here, you've been with me. Your rod and your staff, they've been comforting me. There has prepared a table in the presence of my enemies. There has anointed my head with oil. All of this is happening in the valley. I'm getting renewed, and my head has been anointed with oil. Then, now while I'm there, I'm getting so full that my cup is running. Why are you still in? This is what I'm saying. Why are you still in the valley? You may be in the valley of dry bones, but that's where you need to be. You can get restored in your anointing. You begin to get a fulfillment of joy. To realize who the shepherd is. He began to comfort you. He leads you beside still waters for his name's sake. And as you're going through, you realize goodness and mercy is following me.
Even in the valley.
Even while the pressure is on, even while I'm walking around all these dry things, you still keeping me, preserving me, protecting me, refilling me, refining me, allow me to realize that even in this midst, you are yet walking with me.
Right.
The hymn say, he walks with me. He talks with me. And the joy that we share. And see, when you're in that valley, it feels like you are just there in the midst of a graveyard. No, you're not in a graveyard. There's no graveyard in Christ, because they said that Lazarus was in a tomb, but his tomb became his womb. So the valley ain't a graveyard. It is a place of life and replenishing, because in the valley you still got streams of water.
Right. And you know, Pastor Brandon, what's so ironic about the dryness is, like you said, there is always a stream of water. Now you may not be able to see it right then, because maybe the bones in your life is covering the water. Maybe life itself is the dry bones, and you can't see, you know, no matter how much you're praying and how much you're seeking God, the water that comes out of your belly, it feels like it's stopped up. God, I've been praying and I've been seeking your face and I've been calling out to you. Why do I feel like I'm Lord then? And you know, as you was talking about the airplane, and you know, I'm always on the airplane. I'm a frequent flyer miles. And so one of the things that I realized is, once you get through the altitude, when you hit turbulence, many times the turbulence will cause the plane to drop. It will cause the plane to fall from the original place that it was, and it will have to drop down because the air changed. There's a shift in the atmosphere. And see, that's what the Lord is doing with us, where we feel like I'm even though I was here last week, even though I was here last month, Lord, why is there a drop when I felt like I was going higher in you? Because of the turbulence, because of the shift that has to happen in the atmosphere, the drops seem like you're becoming into a lower place. But what the drop does is get you below what is supposed to tear you up, what's supposed to cause your engines to stall out, what's supposed to cause you to be in a place where you have to do an emergency landing. See, when you drop a little bit, I think many times we wonder, God, are you still there? Did I do something wrong, God? Because I was in this place, but now I found myself in this place where I feel like I'm in a lower place. I feel like I'm not, you know, walking in the anointing that you call me, because all life is consuming me. I can't catch my breath. Everything around me is so dry. And he said, but could it be that I am calling you to this place because I'm shifting you?
Yeah.
And in this shift, you're going to have to now drop a little bit, not because I think you're not good enough to do what I'm calling you to do. I need you to drop a little bit, because what was right there in that place, now I need you to now divert what you was about to hit into. Because many times the pilot will come on and say, make sure your seatbelts are fastened, because I see turbulence ahead. So I'm going to have to maneuver the plane so that we won't hit the part of the turbulence that could tear up the plane. But if you just buckle in and trust me as the pilot, We're going to get back to the altitude, if not higher, because we have bypassed the thing that should have taken us out. And I think that's, and when Pastor Brandon, even as you was talking, I think that's your claustrophobic moment that, oh God, where are you? Because I've done what you told me to do, and I've prayed the prayers that you told me to pray. I've gotten up in the middle of the night praying for people, but I feel like I'm losing my mind. Who's praying for me? Whose name did you drop on my name in their heart so they can call my name out in prayer? Because I've been swinging and fighting and I'm exhausted. Yeah. But even in the dry bones, one of the things that the Lord said, listen, I want you to look at the dry bones. Don't forsake the dry bones. Yeah. Because the same thing that looked like it was nothing is going to be a mighty army when you speak to the dry bone. And that's what we have to do. In this season, Pastor Brandon, I've gone through the ups and the downs. Lord, you called me here to be a wife, but I feel like I'm in the dry bones because I know there's ministry stirring in my belly. I know there's coaching that I need to do, but you have me in the dry bones. And if I'm not careful, if I was not careful, I would have looked at my situation as a grave, like you said. Mm-hmm. All this dead stuff. It feels like my ministry is dying. It feels like my coaching is dying. It feels like my business is dying. It feels like, I'm being left out once again. Lord, you called me here, but yet nothing is stirring. Nothing is moving. But, God said, will these dry bones live?
There you go.
Will they live? And, Ezekiel was like, Lord, Mm-hmm. Like I can give you every excuse. Yeah. Why the dry bones can and cannot live. I can tell you where I don't have the right. I can't put it together. Well, I don't know how the hip bone is connected to the knee bone. Like I don't know how to do what I need to do. But he said, listen, Lord, you know how my business is supposed to come together. Mm-hmm. You know how my ministry is supposed to come together. Mm-hmm. You know how my job situation is supposed to come together. And see, many times we don't ask that question because when the Lord said, can these dry bones live? Now we're trying to pick up pieces because we know what the skeleton is supposed to look like. So now we're starting to put our hands to the plow and we're trying to put it together in our mind. I know, okay, if I got the skeleton, the skull, I got to have the neck. I got to have the back. I got to have the arms. But yet we haven't sat there and said, God,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know the plans that you have for my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But while I'm trying to put it together, and if I'm honest, what I thought was a valley of dry bones has become a place of a restoration for me. Correct. Has become a place of innovation for me where I'm able to now think clearly about the things that the Lord has for me, that I'm able now to put together programs and not feel like it's something that I have to do, something that I must do. I feel like a peace, even in the valley of the dry bones. Why? Because when I allow the Lord to say, Lord, and I allow the Lord to tell me what I need to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He gave Ezekiel exactly what to say to the dry bones. Mm-hmm. And he said, there was a noise. And suddenly, see, we need to stop looking at the dry bones and focus on the right noise. So we're focusing on the brittle things that's crushing under our feet. We're focusing on the stuff that we're tripping over. But when there's a noise from the Lord, then he's causing things to come together. We just have to silence the noise of the world and be able to hear the noise of the Lord, because that's when our dry bones will start coming together. That's when we'll see how the shift is happening, how what we thought was dead is going to become a mighty army. Yeah. And Pastor Brandon, when I think about the mighty army, listen, I don't have to fight alone. Mm-hmm. I don't have to go in it by myself. Everything I need for my army is right here at my feet. And it may look like dry bones. It may look like that it's not the top of the line like David. He had the riffraffs, but they became a mighty army. And that's what I think the Lord is saying to many of us. Stop looking at the dryness of the bones. Just know that when I speak, that there's going to be an army that's going to form around you, that you won't be in this battle by yourself. Because many times it is not that we are tired or we want to give up. We just feel like we're doing it alone.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm the only one praying. I'm the only one that's fighting. He said, no, I have so many. And even when I was riding down the road this week, I said, Lord, open my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you did Elijah's servant. And let me see that there's more for me than against me.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we can see the more that's against us. But Lord, let me see those that's rooting for me. Let me see those that's praying behind the scenes that never told me they're praying for me. Let me see the one that's calling my name out in the midst of my struggle. Because one thing I know about the Lord, he's never going to leave you in the valley by yourself.
That's it. And the wonderful thing I love about it is that sometimes you have to be in the valley to appreciate silence and peace.
My God, come on.
Because, and with that, there is a altitude difference in air pressure difference between a mountain and the valley.
Mm-hmm.
Higher you go up in the mountain, the thinner the air is. So even like when you're in a plane, there's two things that happen as you ascend. The air gets thinner and your hearing changes. Sometimes God has to allow you, if you're going up, for those that ride planes, you know, they tell you to chew gum, because if not, it's going to seem like you have so much pressure in your ears stop up. And sometimes he has to take you through that, clog your ears to stop hearing what everybody else is saying about you, what everybody else's opinion is about you, that you begin to become clogged in your hearing, that the only person that you can truly hear is God. And even with the valley is the exact same thing, because as you said, sometimes he has to drop you in order to hide you.
My God, my God.
Because if you notice a lot of times in I watch American Kingdom, there have been times where I've seen where animals, when they're being hunted, they will run out of the mountain down to the valley so they can hide under the brushes of that nature. And sometimes God has to put you in that valley to hide you so you can get the peace and be restored in your hearing and your breathing. Because some of us are asking God, I need a break. I need some time to recalibrate. So in that case, he takes you from the mountain to where everybody's looking up to you and depending on you to put you in the valley. So can nobody be there but you and him, so you can get peace restored. You can be covered. You can be protected. He can put you beside the still waters. He can allow you to be lay on grass that never begins to die. He'll put you in that place so it can just be you and him. So when you're ready, he'll put you back on the mountaintop. You got more strength. You got more power. You can go a little further. So I think in this time, and this may not, it could just be you and I. Go through this, but I feel as though that there are people that's in the same situation. They're trying to figure out, okay, I'm like in the in-between realm. I used to be either I'm up in high praise or I'm just kind of like in a peaceful state, but now I'm in this in-between place.
Limbo.
Yeah, you're in limbo. You're in this valley. You're like, I don't understand the valley. Sometimes it's not meant for you to understand why you're there. Sometimes you just need to sit there and let God and just say, God, because we're so trying to fix everything. Because even in that valley, what if Ezekiel tried to put them bones together? Somebody who got a 12-foot, he gonna put that with this leg, and then on the other foot be a person that got a size 8. Because we're trying to do it according to what we think works. What we think, because we're always the fixers. And God said, well, can these bones live? Yeah, let me show you how you can do this. And it was like, oh, well, God, And then he had to ask, Ezekiel, can these bones live? And it wasn't the fact that God wasn't sure what he could do, But he needed Ezekiel to realize you got to have confidence and let me handle it. So he had to keep asking, can these bones live? He said, God, you know. Yeah, you know. I got confidence. You know everything. You know my circumstance. You know the situation. You know what I'm facing. You know why I'm here. So take it. And sometimes we have to be reminded you're not God. You can't fix everything. It's not your responsibility. You're either supposed to plant the seed or water and allow God to do the increase. So I think sometimes in that valley, we have to be reminded that we can only do what God says do. And once Ezekiel understood that and became confident in that, then God said, now you speak what I tell you to speak.
Right.
A fresh word. Because sometimes we keep wanting words
right now,
but we want to right now word. But sometimes you're not going to get that fresh word until you're in that valley, until you're in that spot where it seems like everything is drying up. And God said, okay, now that you know who I am and you understand what I can do, speak to the four winds from the north, south, and the east and the west. Tell them to blow on these dry bones. And see, the thing I love about that is sometimes God has to place you in a place of valley so you can learn to go beyond your scope of horizon. Because sometimes we are only anointed when we're in a certain place. We're only powerful when we're in a certain ministry. We ain't anointed and powerful during the week, but on Sunday, we can jump walls and pour that. We in it, but Monday we just kind of like, oh, okay, all right, you ain't Superman until Sunday. You know, I can't move in the spirit unless this is happening, this and third. So God had to let Ezekiel know, no, even in this place right here, I'm gonna teach you how to speak to other places to get what you need, because you're so used to being in this place, working it this way. But I'm a God of everywhere. I'm omnipresent. So if you speak to me when you're in the south and say, I need you, God, the God that's in the north, I need a fresh wind from north. I'm in. These people in the west need something from the east. They need something out of a different region. And when you learn to do that, you can start speaking to God. I know right now I'm in a place that I don't know where I am. I need every angel that's assigned to my life in the present, the past, the future, wherever it was. I need you to come now. The blessing that is supposed to be on my life that's from the east, God, I command that to come. Because you have to learn that God is not a God that's just going to work in your region. He's a global God. He's a universal God. So I think in that moment that Ezekiel finally learned who God was. That I don't have to work right here in the valley, but even in the valley, you can speak outside of the valley to get what you need in the valley.
Right. And what I loved about it in Ezekiel 37, chapter verse 1, he said, the hand of the Lord was upon me. So even in the valley, the hand of the Lord was upon him. And he said, it carried me out in the spirit. And so many times you have, and that's what I love about God. Many times he have to take you out to take you in.
Yeah.
He have to take you out of situations and circumstances. He have to take you out of places that you're comfortable in and put you in the valley that you need to be. Why? He said, because you need to know that I am the one that set you in the midst of the valley. So many times we're looking at the valley and we are despising the valley and we're coming against things in the valley, but yet it was the Lord whose hand was upon me. Which means he's called me for such a time as this, but he's placed me strategically in the valley. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to be desiring the mountaintop and I'm going to miss the lessons that I'm supposed to learn in the valley. I'm so used to desiring to be at a different place. God, I don't want to be here by myself. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be in this place. God, I want to be on the mountaintop. Because on the mountaintop, the breeze seems a little bit cooler. On the mountaintop, the air is a little bit fresher, so I can breathe better. But many times we are fighting the place of our growth. We're fighting the place of strength. We're fighting the place, and see, we're looking at it as it's trying to take me out. Now, everything around me is dead, but God has placed you there because He knows that even amongst the dead things, even in the valley, because His hand is upon you, your words that you speak in the valley will help you be equipped for the mountaintop. But if you keep your mouth closed, when you was talking, Pastor Brandon, about chewing gum, but many times most people don't have gum on the plane. And so what they say is you have to yarn, you have to open your mouth so you can compress so that your eardrum can pop. And see, that's like what we have to be in the valley. We have to open our mouths so what has been there can pop. Okay, God, now I see you higher than I've ever seen you before. Now I understand the words that you have given me. Now I understand my instructions in the valley because I've taken my eyes off of where I used to be. And I've taken my eyes of where I want to be. And I'm going to allow myself to rest even in the valley, even among the dry bones, even among the dry visions, the dry marriage, the dry relationships. I'm going to allow myself to be in this dry place, not because I'm going to be here long. God, you placed me here. Yeah. So what is it that you wanted me to learn in this place? And Pastor Brandon, what do you want me to learn in this claustrophobic place? Why do I feel like all the air is being sucked out? God, what is it that I need to learn? Is there a different way you want me to breathe? Is there a different way that you want me to cry out to you? Is there a different positioning? Lord, do you want me to stand in the midst of the bones, or do you want me to clear a little space so that my foot is planted in the midst of that looks like it's being dead? And many times, if we are not careful, Pastor Brandon, we're going to find ourselves talking ourselves out of our blessing. Talking ourselves out of what God has placed there, because it doesn't look like it's supposed to be wrapped in this beautiful bow, and all the angels are supposed to come singing and bringing me the gift in the midst of the valley. See, He had to speak to the wind. He had to speak to the bones. What if He would have kept His mouth shut? I don't want to be here, Lord. Yeah. I don't want to be in this place. It don't feel good. I don't want to be in this place because it's kind of hot here in the valley. If I was on the mountaintop, there will be a breeze. If I was on the mountaintop, I will be able to get fresh air. But I'm in a place where I can barely catch my breath. And He said, but speak to the wind. Yeah. Because it's something about wind when it comes and it causes you to now expand. Whenever you take a deep breath, your lungs expand. But if you never allow yourself to breathe in the midst of this trial, in the midst of your valley, someone needs to know today that just breathe. Yeah. Just breathe. Breathe. You don't have to tell anybody about your valley experience. You don't have to go trying to figure out how to get out the valley. Just breathe. Yeah. Because it's the expansion that's going to cause you to be able to see, I can continue to make it. Yeah. God, where I thought I was dying, you showing me that I can expand. I can even hold my breath for a moment. Whenever you're going through therapy, they'll tell you, take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. But you never release the breath fast. They will always tell you, now count to 4 as you're blowing out. Count to 5 as you're blowing out. Why? Because if you release as fast as you take it in, you would never be able to get the relaxation that you need. And many times we're trying to breathe it out faster than we have it in. And when you take the moment and say, God, I trust you. God, I understand. God, I believe your word to be true. See, that's taking the time to do your count. God, I know that you know. You know my pain. You know my problems. You know my situation. You know my circumstance. I'm just going to breathe. Yeah. Because in that breathing, I'm able to now see you. I'm now able to, because when people have panic attacks, Pastor Brandon, one thing about a panic attack it causes your vision to be blurred. It causes your chest to hurt. Because even though you have air, you can't get significant amount of air in. But when you take time to breathe, everything falls back into place. Your vision becomes clearer. The pain in your chest seems to go away. And that's what we need to do in this season. Somebody needs to just breathe.
Yeah. And as you said a few significant things, but one main thing that I want to pull out, you said that you have to, as quick as as how you receive it, and paraphrase, is how you need to release it. Sometimes we are quick to receive something and we're quick to release it. Sometimes when you're in a valley, you
Mhm.
always tell people what's going on. And I know this is going against everything we've been talking about about communicating and opening your mouth. But there are some seasons God said, I don't need you to say no. I need you to move in silence.
Right.
Because sometimes in that valley, it just needs to be a conversation between you and him.
Mm.
And learn how to, because sometimes we can speak things too quickly. Think about what if Ezekiel, as soon as God asked that question, he just started running off his mouth. Well, yeah, you know, these bones can live if you do this, this. Then God said, well, can these bones live? Yeah, and you know, you got to do this. But he had a moment to think like, all that ain't necessary. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to God. He can do anything. God, you know.
Mhm.
That's all that was needed to be said. And when we
Right.
learn to do that, we can learn the scripture that has been so prevalent in our own ministry. You be slow to speak
Mhm.
and quick to hear. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times in the valley moments, you don't need to say nothing, because sometimes you can say the wrong thing to somebody and they'll try to manipulate. Well, let me not say manipulate, because they're not spiritually in tune. They would try to force you out of a place and like, oh, this is what it means. And God's like, no, that's not what it means at all.
Mhm.
I'm trying to show you something different, because
My God.
sometimes some of us are directly assigned to valleys. We are
Mhm. Mhm.
valley restorers. We are the
Ooh,
ones supposed
Jesus.
to be in the valley. Everybody ain't supposed to be on the mountaintop. Everybody not supposed to be famous. Everybody's not supposed to be renowned and all this. It's not always. Sometimes he got to have people in the valley, because there are people in the valley that may not ever get to be famous, but they
My
need
God.
somebody to be ministered to. So sometimes you have to be in that place and be quiet and let God lead you, so you can help the people that are there. Because if you've never been in that position, how can you help people in that position?
Right.
You
And
know, and
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's just like in any type of leadership, the best leaders are the ones that have an example. They've been through something. They can actually get down
Mhm.
in the gutter with you. The ones that are kind of detached from it, they're just kind of like, well, it's whatever. Y'all just do it this way. But no, it don't work that way. You got to understand where they're at. You got to walk through them shoes. If you've never been in those shoes, you've never been in that valley, you can't minister to that valley, because you just used to just passing through the valley. But you never
Mhm. Mhm.
stay in that valley for a while until God dealt with you. So yeah, it makes a
Right.
big difference.
And as you were saying, sometimes we have to be quiet and allow the Lord to speak. Because one thing about a valley, if you scream too loud in the valley, there's an echo that comes,
Mm-hmm.
and there's noise coming from every way. The voice that you have released now is coming. You hear the echo. And if you're not careful, you're going to pick up a sound that's not supposed to be picked up. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
release the sound that's not supposed to be released. And
Mm-hmm.
we have to be able to say, God, you know.
That's it. That's it.
And you
That's
may
it.
have tears rolling down your eyes, but God, you know.
You know.
Your body may be ripped with pain. God, you know. Your
Mm-hmm.
money may be a little funny. God, you know.
God, you know.
Your situation may feel like it's dire. God, you know.
That's it.
And when we get to that place, God, I don't know how to cause what I have before me to come together the way that it's supposed to come together. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how my business is going to live. I don't know how my marriage is going to live. I don't know how my children are going to do. I don't know how my finances are going to come together. But God, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what you have laid before me. So I don't want to move too fast.
Yeah.
Let me enjoy my valley experience. Because many times when we get to the mountaintop, it goes from 0 to 1,000 real quick. In the valley, sometimes you're overlooked. In the valley, sometimes you're not seen. In the valley, sometimes they forget to call you because you're not in the forefront. But that's the time in the valley that he's allowing you to rebuild your mind, to rebuild your emotions, to rebuild your heart posture, to rebuild the things that you have lost because you're so busy on the mountaintop. So despise not your valley. Despise not what you're feeling in this season, because we all are in a season, and it seemed like the remnant, those that have said, God, for you I live and for you I die. God, I won't turn back. God, I'm going to continue to press towards the mark of the high calling. It seemed like all hell is breaking loose in our lives. The ones who are the true called of God, the ones who not only been chosen but called, it seemed like we're in the valley. Like you said, Pastor Brandon, you're suffocating.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm lost, I'm confused, I'm stuck. But God has us in this place because he needs you to see him in a different place.
Yeah.
Because you always known him to be Jehovah Jireh. You always known him to be your healer. You always known him to be your deliverer. But have you ever seen him be the one that fights for you? Have you seen him being the banner before you? So there's a season, in this season, God said, I need you to see me differently. Because what you're about to face at the mountaintop, you need to know that you know that you know. So yes, I know the plans that I have for you, but I need you to know that I know the plans that I have for you. See, many times we forget that.
Yeah.
We forget that he knows the plan. We forget to say, God, just give me step by step.
Yeah.
Let me, and there's been times that I've prayed, and I'm like, God, what do you want me to do next? And he said, I want you to do what I told you to do last time. You didn't complete it. What I told you to do last time. Go back to what I told you. I can't give you any more instructions because you haven't completed what I told you to do. And many times we want to go so far ahead that we're not following step by step.
Yeah.
As I'm talking, Pastor Brandon, I just saw a coloring page that had numbers on it. So that reminded me of by the numbers, that whenever you had to color by the numbers, there was numbers in places, but at the bottom of the page, it would say number 1 is blue, and number 2 is red, and number 3 is this color. And so you had to color by the numbers. And if you put a color that wasn't supposed to be in the right place, your picture did not come out the way it was supposed to be. Why? Because you did not follow the instructions. You did not color by the numbers. And I don't know who this is for, but you need to stop and start coloring by the numbers. You need to start following the instructions that the Lord has given you. That's why it seems like your picture is not clear. That's why you can't understand what's going on, because you are failing to color by the numbers. Oh my God. You are failing to see. God knows the plans. So he has given you instructions. And it's just that simple.
Yeah.
1 is blue. So instead of going around trying to figure out, pick up blue. Color all the ones blue. And then go to number 2 and go to red. Follow the instructions so that you will be able to see the picture that God has before you. And it's funny, but many times that's what we become stuck. Because we're not following the instructions. And God is sitting there like, look at this.
Blue.
I've given them the instructions, and instead of them getting blue, they want to get because when you have the crayon box that only have 8 in it, you don't have a problem mixing up the colors.
Yeah.
But when you get to the 64 pack, You
Yeah.
know, I want to do aqua blue. I want to
Yeah.
do blue violet. No, I
Yeah.
told you to do blue. I didn't tell you to add anything to it. I
Yeah.
said blue. So
Mhm.
instead of trying to have the 64 pack, maybe we need to go back to the 8 pack
Mhm.
so that we won't try to do it our own way. We won't try
Yeah.
to pick, well, God, you said it was blue. So it is blue violet. No, no, no. I didn't say no blue violet. I said blue. And when we start following the instructions of the Lord,
Right.
we will see our picture unfold before us, and it's going to be beautiful. Why? Because God knows the plans.
Mhm.
We just have to follow the instructions. So,
Yeah.
Pastor Brandon, is there anything that the Lord is laying on your heart to say to those watching or those who will watch the replay?
One blue. No, play it. Oh.
Right. Follow the instructions.
All right. Um, what I keep envisioning, because I think we don't realize what a valley is. A valley is literally a low place between two mountains.
Mm.
Sometimes you have to learn that your valley, it may seem like you're in the worst place, but if you just look around you, you have all these opportunities at which you can reach higher. But sometimes you have to go through the valley in
My
order to
God.
get to the right mountain. And sometimes the mountain maybe a mountain behind you and a mountain in front of you. So God will let you know that you was at this place of high behind you, but where I'm taking you to is going to be a whole new height and a whole new plateau. So
Mm.
learn to appreciate the valley, learn all the lessons step by step. As prophet says, step by step. One blue, two
One blue.
green. Do exactly what he says, because when you finally understand and you're picking up the tools that he learned, when you get to that next mountain, you will have what is needed. Because the last mountain, you may then need to have a certain pitchfork to better drive into the mountain to climb up, because it wasn't that easy, it wasn't that hard. But as you're in the valley, you begin to find these different tools that will help
Right.
you in the next way that you're going up. So appreciate the valley, appreciate the moment, and don't look at it as a place of death. Look at it as a place of life, because in the valley, his rod and his staff is comforting.
Ooh, my
He
God.
prepares that table. He's walking with you through the valley, and realize it's
Mhm.
the shadows of death. It ain't death. It's just like a
Right.
shadow of it. It's not going to
Mhm.
bother you. It's just like the enemy that comes like a roaring lion. He's not
Light.
really a lion.
Mhm.
Continue to stay focused. Trust God in the midst of everything. As Elder Cobbs, Sabrina said, Ezekiel had no hope in the bones, but he did have hope in God. Learn to
Right.
renew your hope in God, not just in what you see around you, but in God.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Brandon. And if I leave you with anything, I want you to know that God knows.
Mhm.
You know, He nothing that's going on in your life is a shock to Him.
Yeah.
Nothing that you're dealing with is He woke up like, oh Lord, I didn't know that LaTorsha would be going through this. I didn't know that LaTorsha would be in this place. God knows everything.
Everything.
Now you have to also recognize that it's your decisions that may have you in the valley a little longer than you're supposed to be in the valley.
Mhm.
But God knows the plans that He has for you. And when you stop to recognize, God, I know that you know.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
I'm no longer going to try to do it myself. I'm going to allow you to be God in my life.
That's it.
Even
That's
if I have to do it with tears rolling down my eyes, even if I have to do it alone, even if I have to do it where it feels like everything around me is dead, God, you know.
you know.
And I know. See, it's one thing to know that God knows, but it's another thing to know that I know that God knows.
Mm-hmm.
So, God, I've finished all the ones, and they're all blue. Now I'm ready to step into the green.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to take time to enjoy coloring while I'm moving, because I know that the picture is going to be so beautiful because you are leading me every step of the way. So don't be discouraged. Don't try to fight the valley.
Mm-hmm.
Ask God, what is it that I need to learn in the valley so it can be used in the mountaintop? And God will definitely give you the instructions that you need. And we tell you every Thursday that if you need us, we're just a call away. Yes, we may be going through our own valley experience. We may be going through our own situations, but we also understand that God is going to strengthen us for what we need, not just for ourselves, but for you, because we're doing this together. So trust, just as you're going through it. Believe me, that we are going through it too. And so I love you all. Thank you for being here. We will be on again next week. And so until then, you all have an amazing week and amazing weekend. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.